A longbow that is high strung causes excessive deformation of the bow's limbs. Is this deformation a stress or a strain? Now, to help us understand what's being talked about here, I've brought in a picture of a longbow. This actually came from Wikipedia's article on springs, and they had it there as kind of an example of maybe one of the first or earliest, you could say, examples of springs out there, as opposed to like coil springs that we're used to is the bow. And there are apparently some ancient examples of tweezers and stuff like that. There were also early examples of springs with different purposes. In this question, it talks about a longbow that is high strung. So what is that? What does it mean to be high strung? That's maybe a word that is not necessarily a physics class word, I'll admit. But the idea behind that is if you have an actual longbow, you have to get the right length of string. And a high strung might look something like this, where you have a string that's a little bit too short. And the result is that the curvature of the bow, even before it's drawn, is kind of excessive. And this is putting a lot of stress on the bow and forcing the limbs to engage in a lot of strain. And that may be part of the answer, because it says, is this deformation a stress or a strain? So the thing to remember is stress has to do with the force applied. In that sense, if I said, what's causing the stress here, I would say it's the tension force in the string. But if we're talking about how much the bow limbs themselves are being deformed, that is the strain. So that's, in that sense, the answer I'll put here for this question is strain is clearly the answer we're looking at. I do want to maybe just go on a slight little tangent here and say, in case you wonder, like, where does this term high strung come from? Why is this called high strung? Shouldn't this be called like short strung? Because I just said, right, that the bowstring is short. Well, it turns out one of the other terms in the world of archery is called the brace height. And the brace height is the distance between the string and basically the handle, or where you would put your hand. Some really old bows didn't really have handles, actually, just a stick pretty much, right? But that is the brace height. And so when you have a short string, that is too high, so hence the term high strung. And today we also say that if a person is high strung, right, what does that mean about them? Well, they're probably experiencing some strain, maybe some stress too. But for following this question, maybe it's really strain. Either way, the answer to this question and the relation to the physics concept clearly is strain. So there it is.